normally the talk of trading a superstar in the offseason when we're in early May, it's May 12th or close to mid-May. Normally, it's like, really? You know, KD's going to get moved. Giannis is going to get moved. Uh, Devin Booker might get moved. I don't think LeBron gets moved, but again, he may act like he's going to get moved. Uh, Joel Embiid going to come back. What does it look like around him? Let's see what happens with the Celtics after the season because Porzingis doesn't feel like he can get or can stay healthy. Assuming they survive, and maybe that's a big assumption, down 2-1, they'll be player movement. But normally, May 12th, you talk about player movement, like, a little early. Normally, you talk about the NBA draft lottery, and there's not a crazy amount of interest, even if the talent is crazy exciting. Victor Wembanyama, very exciting player. A couple years ago, there was some tanking going on for Wemby. But our interest in the lottery and the draft has clearly waned over the years. If you go back the last 20, 30 years, I did 10 of these drafts, and every year, and granted, the first year was LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, Darko Milicic, et cetera, et cetera. It's not close to that. And part of it is we don't feel like the one-and-done guys can help right away. And the older guys feel like they're just older guys. They're not great players. Regardless of whether or not we've had draft picks in the portal era be successful or not, and the fact that the portal and the money in college has weeded out a lot of the, hey, I'm late first, early second, guys that get in the draft that clearly aren't ready. They go back to college, they make more money, and they do get older and they do get better. Very rarely do we get excited about a draft or draft lottery. Very rarely do we get excited about free agency movement on May 12th. Here's why it's different this year. You have at least the possibility of Giannis wanting to be moved. He's got 2 years left in his contract. And you have a very unique incoming talent who is widely regarded as the number one overall player, who's younger than guys have been previous, American players have been previously because he reclassified. He's only 18 years old. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't say at least a factor of the, I don't know, the hope for him is he's ready to play at a very young age, and he's the great white American hope. Again, I don't think that's why you draft players, right? I mean, 95% or so of the best NBA players are black men, whether they're from here or from Greece or from Canada or wherever. 95%. But the point is, very high percentage. And so you're never going to sacrifice the chance of having a great player just because of the color of his skin. You're still in the business of winning games. Nothing else matters. You want to fill up seats, win games, win games, win games. But if the top prospect happens to be white, American-born, which we have not had, there's at least a curiosity to it. If not, based upon his play in college, his play against Team USA last summer, leads you to think like, hey, maybe this guy could be different than so many in the past. And it leads to the question, which is a very simple one. Would you trade away the chance at Cooper Flagg, who's going to make far less money? And you're like, you have to, NBA guys, you have to have dollar for dollar equate. You do, but you throw in everything else in the kitchen sink. Really, it's you're trading a top-level NBA player for a very top-level prospect. Normally, would you do it? And I think a lot of it depends upon where the team is in their growth, but also can they build around Giannis, for example, if Giannis was to be moved? And I think it's a great question because my take is pretty simple. I absolutely trade that pick. And I love Cooper Flagg. But I know what Giannis Antetokounmpo is. Like, is he the best shooter in the world? No. Is he the easiest guy to play with of a superstar? No. He does appear to be a great human being. He is a beloved teammate. And we've seen him win an NBA Finals MVP. We've seen him kind of win a game at that level on his own and close out a series on his own. Everything from Cooper Flagg is hope that he can maybe someday possibly get to that level. You know, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Now, the flip side to that is Giannis has been hurt a good amount. I don't think he's at the downside of his career, but he's definitely not at the apex of his career. And he makes a crazy ton of money, whereas Cooper Flagg would not. But I think that's what makes this draft or this draft lottery tonight really interesting, because depending upon who gets the pick, it's much more movable. And the possibility becomes a higher rate of probability if it's the right team that wants to win now. Right? Cooper Flagg is going to be a hell of a player in the NBA. Do I think he's going to be a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like once he gets to the league. I think, yeah, it feels like it. He's up for the challenge. He plays well in big games. He's played against older guys. He can do a ton on the floor. And if you don't like the way he shoots middies off the dribble, just know that eventually it'll get to where they're more a higher percentage of threes. And as he develops more range, it'll be even better. But like, the guy's legit. That said, I know what Giannis is. I would definitely, if somebody said, hey, basically it's straight up Giannis for Cooper Flagg, like, I know what I'm getting there. I take Giannis. But at least it's an interesting conversation, whereas in so many years in the past, I don't think it's that interesting. And, A.J. Debinsa is considered the top prospect going to college this year. There are reports he's going to make $7 million to go to BYU. And if you've seen some of the mic'd up segments with A.J. Debinsa, you're like, yeah, I'm not sure I love him. Cooper Flagg does not have the same polarizing trash talk in his background. But I think the draft lottery is really interesting, and it's really interesting because this is the rare year where you can actually have that discussion, and it's a way. Normally, you go like, number one pick for Giannis, move him. Goodbye. But when you have a generational sort of talent plus a generational sort of story, and again, let's not avoid it. I don't think that Cooper Flagg is rated how he's rated because of the color of his skin. I don't. I don't think anybody would say that. I think he's rated how he's rated because at every level, he's been the best player. But you can't deny the fact that America hasn't had who's the best? Tyler Hero is probably the best American-born white player in the NBA. Is that who we're going with? Right? So I do think it makes it interesting. Does it make it a drawing card? I don't know. I don't know why other people watch basketball, and I don't like being told this is why other people watch. I like to see things how they played out. Did Duke's numbers spike? No. People still watch Duke. But I think that his talent is what makes him interesting because he is, without any question, the number one prospect, and he's an American-born kid, and he seems to be one of these fluid big guys who can play anywhere on the court, kind of like a Giannis. But again, if you take him, you're more hoping that he could eventually become – he'll never become Giannis because he's a different player, but that level of dominance, whereas with Giannis, you know what he is. Let me ask you, Bayer, real quick, because you're a Bucks fan, and I don't think there's any doubt that though you don't watch every game, you watch a lot more Bucks basketball than I have. But if I told you Cooper Flagg and what he could become, or Giannis and what he is, what would you do? And again, I know that the salaries don't match, and you have to do other stuff and throw in things in the bag, but that's kind of what it comes down to. What would you do?
Well, so just to give a little background, because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago in passing after the Dame injury, because it just didn't look like the Bucks' future was that great at that time. And it's like when your team in college football loses, you look at recruiting lists.
Sure.
Same thing in college basketball. What do we have coming in? What can we do in transfer portal now? You're always looking ahead. And I thought about that. I would rather, at this point, if I'm the Milwaukee Bucks, have Cooper Flagg than Giannis. But there's also the point of, for the teams that are likely to get the number 1 overall pick, they don't need Giannis. They'd just be what the Milwaukee Bucks likely are right now. If you were Charlotte, or if you were the Wizards, or if you were the Jazz, and those are the teams that have the best chances of winning the lottery and getting the number 1 overall pick, not only are you doing a swap, but you're giving other pieces as well away to Milwaukee as part of that deal. That I don't even think it's realistic in this conversation. Now, if Brooklyn would jump up and get number 1, maybe a different story there. Maybe another team jumping up and getting that opportunity. But yeah, it's tricky, because I think the Bucks could win 42 games with Giannis and without Dame. They went 10-4 without Dame at the end of the year. There's going to be some changeover. But you mentioned the points against him and the health, and it's a battle of wills in the NBA with these two topics, because number 1, potential. It's what we always draft. But number 2, superstars. So I'm not a big Marvel, DC sort of guy, but it seems like it's a battle of those two titans coming at each other on which one you would go with. And I would go with, for the Bucks scenario in this case, I would rather have Cooper Flagg's future.
Wow. Giannis has not made any firm decisions. This is from Shams. On the Bucks' future after the franchise third consecutive postseason exit in the first round. But for the first time in his career, Giannis is open-minded about exploring whether his best long-term fit is remaining in Milwaukee or playing elsewhere, league sources told ESPN. Teams have approached the Bucks frequently over the years about the availability of Giannis Antetokounmpo as a normal exercise, and it's expected to ramp up due diligence during the Combine week, according to league sources. So, again, we have time for it. But the fact that he's at least open to exploring tells you where he is, and I'm with you. I agree with you from a Bucks perspective. I think the rest of it is really interesting. Really interesting. Like, take Brooklyn for example, Dan. Right?
Sure.
They've had their best teams when they haven't had those supers. Now, I could sit there and go like, hey, if I'm fair, when they had KD and they had Kyrie and they had James Harden. Harden wasn't healthy, but they were going to beat the Bucks. Kyrie gets hurt, and then KD still could have won the series, had his toe on the line in Game 7. So they haven't been that far off, but does Giannis make them a championship team? And my answer would be no. No. Whereas Cooper Flagg, that makes Brooklyn way more interesting, and it continues the build with what they do. So I'm very much team dependent upon what I do.
I think that the closest thing that we have in this scenario for the history of what we've seen is when the Cavs traded Andrew Wiggins in the deal to bring in Kevin Love. That they chose big three for LeBron in his return than developing Andrew Wiggins and keeping him on that team with LeBron and Kyrie. And I think they're not apples to apples, but that's the time where the Cavs said, okay, we will trade that number 1 overall pick. We will trade that guy for a substantial piece that we feel that could bring us the title.
Yeah,
it's the closest deal that I think that we could come to in looking at it.
It's a great parallel. I'd say the difference is, right? The difference is Cooper Flagg is a much more well-regarded prospect than Andrew Wiggins is, right? This is a year in which there's absolutely a number 1 pick that you absolutely think should be an NBA All-Star, whereas Andrew Wiggins was always a what-if sort of guy, right? What-if sort of guy. And that was the Embiid year, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, if you can redraft, remember, Embiid missed his entire first year. Embiid got hurt before the draft when he was playing college basketball. So would you have made that? Would that move have made sense if it was a healthy Joel Embiid? I think the answer is no. I think the answer is no. But it's just a fascinating deal where normally we've gotten to this place you're like, draft lottery, schmaff lottery. But now when you factor in a prospect who is absolutely regarded as the number one guy, that's Cooper Flagg, and the potential for a superstar somewhat in his prime. I don't know how many more years we view him as such, but he's still a really talented guy that can obviously help carry a basketball team. Could be on the move. And the only reason I say this is because Shams says first time in his career he's open to the thought of it.